Hi folks. Well, the radiator assembly replacement on the Allis D14 saga continues. After several months, I was finally able to find a used radiator to replace the one that was shot. I told you that in a previous video. I came across a used farm equipment guy who basically buys, repairs, and resells equipment. I think he's in Indiana. I can't remember off the top of my head. He was on one of the Allis Chalmers pages, and he advertised or just put a post on saying, hey, I had a number of radiators come back from the radiator shop that they've been repaired, and he listed them, and one was for a D14. So I contacted him and we made arrangements. I paid him and he sent it to me. So it was a whole lot cheaper than buying one of the new ones, and nobody else had the new ones anyhow, because I guess they're all coming from China or stuck on boats off of the coast of California. But at any rate, so I think I can get this tractor running again, assuming this radiator doesn't leak. Now it looks like it was repaired, but that doesn't matter as long as it's repaired well and it's good. And then we want to put it back together. Now, a couple other little things in connection with doing this. I was advised in here, the top of the water pump is where the thermostat is located. You can see there are actually 4 bolts around this sides of this housing. You just take those 4 bolts out and this top pops up, and what's inside is basically this. You see the thermostat there, there's a rubber gasket, and then there's another sleeve. So I did manage to get a new one of those, put it in. It goes in like this. The rubber gasket goes up inside the top of the bell here. Just set it in place and then tightened it down again. Now online there were some places that had gaskets here for the lid, excuse me, but when I took this off it didn't have any gasket on it and it wasn't leaking from there. So because the places I looked wanted like $4 for the gasket but $12 for shipping, I thought this is nuts. So I decided to skip it. So hopefully it won't leak, we'll see. So I replaced the thermostat just in case that was the problem. Now one of the other things that might be wise to do, or at least check if you're at this place, is to look at your belt here, your radiator, your fan belt that runs your fan, and also it's attached to, in my case this is still a 6-volt generator. It was never upgraded to the 12-volt alternator. The kit to do that's like $250, so that's a little bit out of my price range. But at any rate, if you decide to change your belt, and I didn't because this one's fairly new, somebody must have changed that out not too long ago, so it wasn't necessary to replace it. But let me show you how you do that very quickly and easily. And this works a whole lot easier if you don't have a radiator here. You can do it with the radiator on though. The generator here is mounted with 3 bolts, 1, 2, and 3. The 2 on the bottom you just want to loosen up, and then the 1 on the top you loosen up, and then you push the generator in this direction. The bolt slides along this track here in the bracket, and then that loosens up your belt so that you can slip it off and put a new one on. So if you have to do that, you can do that. Like I said, even with the radiator in place, you can reach around to be able to do that. It's not too hard to get at, but I didn't bother to do it. So other thing I replaced this is the lower radiator hose. Took the old one off, it was in rough shape. I've got 2 clamps here, one that'll go on this side, one will go on the radiator nipple side that goes into that, and then here's the upper hose that connects to the top of the water pump and into the top of the radiator. Again, same thing with the hose clamps. Some people double clamp them. Maybe I'll end up doing that if it doesn't seem to be tight enough, but as for right now I'm just going to try one on each side and we'll see what happens. So the other thing is the radiator attaches to the tractor through 2 bolts here and here in the metal frame, in the frame of the tractor. You can see here and here, and you set it in place and then just run the 2 bolts. You can see the bottom of the radiator here, there's 2 little feet with a hole in, that's where it attaches. Now what was recommended was to put these rubber seats here to give a little bit of cushion so you're not bolting metal to metal. I guess it gives a little bit of cushion for the radiator. There weren't any when I took the radiator off, so whoever had either done this originally or done some work on the radiator prior didn't bother. And unfortunately, I went to Allstate Ag Parts, asked for a set of 2, which is how they sell them, and they sent me a packet with 1 in. It's impossible to get through to them on the phone because they're so busy, so I thought, screw it. So what I'm going to do is on the other side, I just took an inner tube patch, cut it in half, and I'll put the other half on here, so I still have just a little bit of rubber cushioning, so it's not metal on metal. But then all I have to do is run the 2-bolt, put the radiator on, run the 2 bolts in, and then connect up the 2 hoses, and I should be ready to refill it and see if it'll work. So I'll come back to you with the next phase. Okay, we got the radiator on. A couple things that I found in doing so. First of all, I had to take off the rear or the lower hose where it connects into the engine there. Let's see if I can see that. There we go. And I had to attach it first to the radiator. I couldn't put the radiator on and slide the hose over the radiator nipple. It just wouldn't work that way. So I had to put that on. Also, the hose clamps here, it's so tight the way they have to go on that I had to turn the screws downward, which makes it a pain in the neck to tighten up because you can't get at them from the side. You have to go from underneath the tractor and come up through with an extension socket. So I was able to do that, but that was a bit of a pain. As you can see, it's really, let's see if you can see in there with my flashlight here. You can see it's kind of a pain, but they're both attached and they should be tight, I hope. The upper one was a little bit of wiggling around too, but I did get that one attached as well. I believe that's tight enough. We're going to find out soon enough. And then it was just to attach or to screw in these 2 bolts that held it in place. I had to get rid of the rubber gaskets. It just put the radiator at a wrong angle to get that lower hose attached, that lower radiator hose attached. It was just that little bit was a bit too much of a problem. So I went back to the way it was originally, that there was no rubber there, and I just done metal on metal. So we'll see what happens, but they're good and tight. And as you can see, the radiator itself is solid. It's not going anywhere. I did do a preliminary look to see the fan blades aren't hitting anywhere, and so my next move is to fill the radiator and then try to start the tractor and see if I have any leaks. Well, let's check for leaks first after I fill it. If there's nothing obvious here in the radiator, then I'll start the tractor. I might have to charge the battery a bit. I've been trying to charge it the last few days because it hasn't been used in 6 months. And then we'll see if it works. So I'll come back to you on that. All right, well, first test was moderately successful, but I still have some problems here. After 6 months, I managed to get the tractor started, even though it's cold today. I threw a little heat in the gas tank to, take any moisture that might have gotten into gasoline over the last 7 months from condensation. And using the choke, it fired up for me. I had it running for about 5 minutes or so. Even though the specs for this tractor say it takes 9 quarts of coolant, I was only able to put 7 in. So I don't know if there was still some in the tractor that I never got out. I don't know. I'm not going to question it. I mean, I thought maybe after I ran it a little bit, the air bubbles would work their way out and that the level would drop and I could put more in, but that's not the case. It's full. And I did I put 4 quarts of concentrated antifreeze in and 3 quarts of water. So it's better than a 50-50 mix. So it should withstand any kind of cold, so we'll see what happens. But my problem is this. Right here. That's what I was afraid of, where the top of the housing for the thermostat goes onto the water pump. it is leaking out through there. I've tightened those bolts down as tight as I can, and like I said, there was no gasket on there when I took it off. I don't know how it wasn't leaking before, and as I explained before, I didn't want to spend the money for the replacement because of how expensive it was. So I might have to go to plan B here. I think if I absolutely had to use it, I could, because it's leaking a little bit, but it's nothing major. It's not going to leak majorly. It's just it's seeping out, and the system isn't as pressurized as it should be. In fact, it's the pressurization that's pushing it out, I'm sure. Hopefully the thermostat is working. I can't tell because I don't have an active temperature gauge on this tractor. It's long since been defunct, so, and I never worried about it because I never had any overheating problems until this summer with this tractor. So at any rate, what I think I may do is go to an auto parts store, see if I can find some gasket material, like cork gasket material, rubber gasket material, and then just cut it to size and put it in. It's basically the hole for the water to go through, and then the holes for the 4 bolts to go through. I mean, I don't care if it doesn't look perfect, if it's hanging out a little bit, as long as it seals it. And I need a material that'll handle the hot temperatures, you know, the changing temperatures. So I don't know. We'll see what happens, but that's, I guess, what my next move has to be here. This hasn't been an easy problem to deal with, and especially when you're not a mechanic, that makes it 100% worse. And somebody who was never used to Allis Chalmers tractors growing up, it's been a learning as you go experience this entire ownership of this D14. Now, lest you think I'm complaining, I'm not, because a 1958 D14 that's still running and has given me a good, let's see, did I buy it? I think I bought it in 2016, so it's coming up on 6 years that I have it. It's scraped the snow and plowed the gardens and mowed the brush hogged the grass, all I've needed it to do, so there's nothing that it owes me, but it's got more life left in it than just this, so I've got to keep doing what I can to repair what I can repair without putting a lot of money into it. But anyway, I guess that's where it stands now. I'll come back to you when I've tried to replace this gasket and see if we've sealed off the leaks. As I said, it's not leaking real bad, so if worst case scenario happened, that we had a snowstorm, that I had a scrape, I probably could. I probably wouldn't even put all the rest of the sheet metal back on the tractor. I mean, I can run it like this if I need to. I just need to disconnect the wire for the lights on the hood. I could do it that way if I had to, because that's just all cosmetics anyway. But the guts are working, so that makes me feel good that I didn't crack the engine when it overheated in the summer. I just blew out the radiator. So, and this radiator that I bought, as far as I can tell, it's fine. These little bit of streaks here were when I opened the cap. That's not them. It's not leaking. So I believe the name of the company where I got this from, the guy who has the page on one of the Allis Chalmers Facebook pages, is Bowman's Tractor Salvage. So you might want to give him a look-see. Every once in a while he'll post he's got used tractors for sale or other parts. But he was fair with me. He did give me a used radiator, but it's a working radiator, and the price was good. The shipping was good. It was very prompt shipping. So if you're looking for something, it's going to be hit or miss because he's not a big operation. He's a one-man, business, I believe. Who knows? He's somebody that might be able to help you out if you need it, all of you old Allis guys. So, all right, I'll get back to you and see where we end up with this whole project. Well, hi folks. It's been a number of months since I filmed the previous portion of this video about this radiator saga that I'm dealing with, or been dealing with now, excuse me, for over a year with the Allis D14. And I think the last thing that I reported was I had put everything back together, filled the radiator, and it leaked out here on the top where the bell housing goes over the bracket here, where it goes down into the engine, where it goes down in the water pump. And that's because I had pulled it apart to replace the thermostat, thinking that that was the problem, and it just didn't seal tight. My thinking was that, well, you know, there was no gasket on it or what have you. But so what I finally, make a long story short, I finally got back at working at it. I drained the radiator fluid and the water mix out of the radiator, and I pulled this apart, and I started scraping on the metal here to try to make sure the surface was as smooth as it could be to fix it. And there was the remains of a gasket. I couldn't even see it there. It was so thin and disintegrated. So there was some kind of a gasket there to keep it from leaking, but it wasn't anymore. So what I've done is I have cleaned this up as best I can, scraped it off, and then also the underside there where the bell housing is, where the thermostat fits up in. And what my plan is to create a gasket with this silicone gasket maker. Got this just at an auto parts store. It's supposed to be good from minus 65 to plus 650 degrees Fahrenheit, so it should cover any heat issues with where I'm using it. Basically what they suggest that you do, first of all, that the area has to be clean and dry, but it has a little resistance to oil and fluids, it says on it. But put about a 1/16 to a 1/4 inch bead of silicone around it, covering around all where the bolt holes are there, you can see, so that it's a solid seal so nothing can leak out. Put it back together immediately before the silicone has a chance to dry, and tighten the bolts back down, finger tighten them until you start to see the silicone squeeze out between the two parts, just so that it's obviously made contact. So, and then at that point you just stop, give it an hour to dry, and then you torque the bolts down to their final position. This stuff requires another 90 minutes of curing before I can put fluid back in and it could be used. So it should be something that could be done within a day if you have a repair like that. They have a variety of these different types of silicone gasket makers. Some are more expensive, some are quicker to be able to use if you have an emergency repair. Some take longer. So I kind of got the mid-range thing just to try it. I've never used it before, so you're along for the ride with that one. So my plan is I'll put that on, put the thermostat and the housing back in there, the gasket, put the bell housing down over it. I mean, after I put my silicone bead around the top surface there, and then I'll finger tighten it down and we'll see what happens. So I've been able to work around not using the tractor for over a year now, and now it's more than time to get it back running again. And I've got fields to mow with the brush hog and other things that need to be done. So we'll see what happens. This radiator, I told you the whole story behind that earlier parts of the video. So it does not leak, so it should work for me. And we'll go from there. I'll come back to you. I just wanted to show you the proper configuration for the thermostat and the housing and the gasket that was in there. This is the old one that I had taken out. So basically, this flange, this brass flange, fit on the top of that hole, but in the square box part there, that the bell housing fits over top of. And then the thermostat goes in, and then the gasket goes right on the top like that. So those three in that order, and then they just fit up inside the bell housing there. So that's what I did with the new one. Again, with only having one hand to work the camera, it takes two hands to do most of these jobs, so I have to show you after the fact rather than while I'm doing it. But as you can see, turn some light on here, the silicone is oozed out around the edges like it's supposed to. I tightened them down a little more than finger tight just to make sure I had a decent seal, but it's nowhere near tight yet. Just want to make sure that it would seal all the way around. So in an hour I'll come back and tighten up these bolts completely, and then I should be good to go. After that, like I said, after that 90 minutes after that, then you can add fluid. I might wait till tomorrow to do that, because I got to charge my battery up anyhow, because I haven't used this tractor, and well, the last time I started it was several months ago. So at any rate, I'll not bother showing you tightening up the bolts. I'll bring you back when I have it refilled and ready to start up with the antifreeze and water mixture here. Not a big deal to do, so I'll come back to you. Well, it's been a number of weeks since the last portion of this video was shot. I didn't get back right after I finished the repair and put the tractor back together to give a wrap up, so that's what I want to do now. It's been busy. But the radiator is working fine. It's holding the antifreeze and the water mixture, no leaks. The tractor is working fine for me, considering its age. And I've used it now, I don't know how many hours since I finished the repair work on the radiator. I've done a fair amount of mowing with the brush hog with it, and I think we're back to normal now that this radiator was replaced finally, and we're back at it. So you can see I'm just showing you that I put the parts back together. I don't think I had any leftovers. It was quite a challenge trying to figure out where all the bolts went after many months of not working on it. So, but we're good to go. The Allis is back in service, mowing fine. I'll probably use it to winter plow the gardens, and then I'll put the back blade on it for snow removal duty come winter, and hopefully we'll have a few more years of service out of this old girl. So again, thank you for watching. Thank you for enjoying our channel. Hope this bumbling effort of my part to try to do these mechanical repairs on an old tractor is somewhat helpful for you, and hope you enjoy living out in the country on a shoestring. Please like and subscribe, tell your friends about us, and thank you for watching.